Now I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter, Matt Donovan. As the Vice President of GP Strategy's Learning Solutions Group, Matt has over 20 years of experience crafting training and development solutions with a focus on performance-driven learning. He has led the production of over 300 custom online courses for Fortune 500 companies, many of which employ a scenario-based approach focusing on reinforcing authentic work practice. Matt has an MS in Instructional Systems Technology from Indiana University, and when he's not working, he is enjoying time with his family. So with that, Matt, I'm going to go ahead and turn presenter rights over to you, and I wish you luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. All right. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to meet with you guys today and chat a little bit about WorkLife Synergy and self-directed learning. So, as you guys can imagine, we want to look at why is this, or how are these items really linked together, and it really gets into the challenge around looking at the needs of the future. And for those of you that don't know, Alvin Toffler is an author and a futurist, and he was quoted as saying several years ago, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And what we're finding is in the evolution of our learning solutions and the performance support systems that we're putting out here, this is becoming more and more true every day as we're designing for our partners as across the board. So where that comes into looking at the self-directed learning plan is that we're beginning to have to find that partners as well as their employees and individuals are having to take more ownership of that learning journey for themselves. And it really ties back to this. And so I know I was introduced to this quote in college in my grad program, and it's kind of been a driving force in how we design a lot of our solutions. So why is it that, work-life synergy and self-directed learning are becoming so more important in today's? And it really starts here on the left when we look at the growing need for an agile workforce. And what we mean is the rate of change, the complexity of the problems that are facing businesses and individuals is becoming more complex. And what we need to be able to do is to take more ownership at the point of performance to be able to pull together the requisite knowledge and information in order to provide those solutions. So that agility is of growing importance across the board. We're also seeing emerging lifestyle expectations from shifting workforce demographics. We've got folks from, the millennials moving into more and more leadership positions, all the way up to the boomers who are transitioning out of the workforce and finding new and different ways in which they can still contribute post-retirement in organizations or just up to the retirement in the organization. So there's a lot of things in the way in which people get work done, where they get work done across the generation gaps. So that's really where we start to look at a difference between the concept of work-life balance and work-life synergy. The other element here that we're finding is that the expanding capabilities for access to coach and mentor networks is increasing. So now more than ever, we actually have the ability to reach beyond our immediate surroundings to be able to pull in the things that can support us. So it's a new capability that's available to us that hasn't always been there. And then obviously the increased access to content that's user-generated, that's free and online, that's being created by peers. So just the volume amount of information that's now accessible to the individual performer is greater, more for than ever. However, when we start to look at the importance of that self-directed learning is how do we start to create a plan that allows us to basically structure some elements around that to get what we need in order to solve a problem or perform differently as you're blending that across that line of personal and professional. Now, I mentioned a little bit around the work-life synergy versus the work-life balance, and I choose the word synergy because balance, the challenge to the balance concept is that it assumes that we can compartmentalize our lives and divvy up the energy into these two segments of personal and professional, and the changing way in which we get work done, the fact that we're working more on a global teams, cross-functional teams, we're having to basically work into what used to be our personal space, and in order to get some personal things done, we're taking some of those traditional work days to get things done as well. So I talk more about work-life synergy, where you're trying to bring both your personal and professional together to create something greater than just the sum of the parts. And that's where self-directed learning comes in. And so, an investment in a good WorkLife Synergy program and reinforcing self-directed learning can generate things like reduced turnover, increased productivity, more creative problem solving, and a sustainable business agility model with that. So that's the importance of investing in this, and that's what it's going to get you from a return. So what we're going to focus on today more within that WorkLife Synergy is how do we bring in a self-directed learning plan that kind of can help us across that personal, professional, as we're looking at growth within what we're doing for the organization as well across it, while bringing increased value. So one of the things we're looking at here, I've kind of pulled together 7 items that we're looking at here that will be able to help you think about creating a synergistic self-directed learning plan. I'm sure that there could be more added to this, or we could dig in more, and we only have 20 minutes today, but I'll kind of walk through some of these and we'll elaborate on a couple of points in follow-up slides. So the first thing is you got to clarify your learning journey. While we have increased access to tons of information and networks of coaches and mentors and peers out there to help us, you first got to start to map out what is it that you want to learn about and why is it important. And that learning journey in and of itself is starting to structure those questions that you want to answer and the destination of it, where you want to be. Where do you want to grow towards? What you want to be able to answer? What do you want to be able to learn more about? And this is an activity that this journey is almost in a map that is continuously revisited and adjusted as where you're going. So the idea is the first thing is start off with a plan, and it doesn't have to be completely mapped out on like a 10-year learning journey, but you start by bringing together the list of the relevant questions and relevant topics that you want to learn about, and start to map out and attach things of where I'll get the information, where I will get support, and how I'll start to get my learning in place. The next thing is you want to just look at your weekly and daily schedules to integrate time to learn and reflect. And this is one of the challenges that we have, and it ties back to that work-life synergy, is that with more change happening, with more demands being put on individual performers, one of the things that's squeezed to the end of the day or the last thing on the list is the time to learn and reflect. What we're finding is that it's important to work that into the schedule, work that into the program, and make sure that you have time to do that. And using technology tools, whether it's creating something within your Outlook account, putting things in your calendars, or bringing in an app to kind of help manage that process, you've got to make sure that you do it and start in small bites and get that put in place. Think beyond traditional experiences. It's more than just thinking about, I'm going to go out and take, an 8-week course on something, or I'm going to attend a conference session. There's a whole range of experiences out there that can help you kind of flesh out or round out your entire learning plan with a variety of approaches. It could include things such as white papers and videos and lectures, or a MOOC or a course. But it's more than just it used to be where you had to sign up for a workshop or sign up for a course. There are lots of informal ways out there to pull in learning elements into your overall structured experience. Expand your moments of learning. This is something we'll talk a little bit more about, but we want to think beyond just about the first time you're going to delve into a topic or think through it, or the questions you want to answer the first time. You want to think about how that unfolds over the different points or the different ways in which you will need to tap into that learning. What we do is create a dynamic list of questions and topics, and this really ties back into the first one where you're talking about clarifying your learning journey. I keep a running list of relevant questions and topics that I'm thinking about, and I kind of just jot them down, that's interesting, or I'd like to learn more about this topic, and I can just kind of keep a running list of that that's always changing, being updated as I have conversations with folks or new things come up, tying back to personal and professional goals. The next one is incorporate brain science into your plan. How are you going to structure your experiences? How are you going to bring it together? And what I mean here is that you need to think about when and how you're going to learn, how you're going to arrange the information to promote the greatest level of retention and retrieval, and ultimately transfer to performance. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but the idea is to think through, a variety of resources, not waiting till the end of the day when you're absolutely exhausted to start to learn. Learning in many ways is creating new, informally, what a word like pathways or linkages to connecting information, and it's very difficult to be able to do that when you're exhausted or tired, and you've been sitting behind the desk dealing with challenges challenging problems and you have an exercise in the day, you want to get the most out of your learning activities whenever you can. So work them into a schedule, know your body and how your brain works to best respond to that. And I'll give you a couple of resources here in a second. And then the last one, which is just good old-fashioned, goal planning, is you want to set smaller, achievable goals and then track your progress against this. And this is like, taking, even though you may be using informal learning resources, you want to put some element of formality around it. You want to structure it. You want to look at the range of ways in which you can incorporate information. So let's take a look at, a couple of resources that I want to provide. Now, if you attended the neuroscience, these will look very familiar within that. But I also bring them back because they are great ways to start thinking about, if you look at what Margie or John or David's talking about here, it's how to think about how your brain works, how to work with it, to structure some activities around that. And again, I recommend these are great reads, but it'll definitely have an impact in the ways in which you structure your learning, you bring your pieces together, the ways that when, I guess, you're going to take time to learn and where, because it brings all of that into supporting you to increase your retention and basically get a greater return on that investment of time around self-directed learning. So again, it's about creating structure and space and then thinking intelligently about how you're structuring your learning experiences. So let's take a look at another way of the framework to consider. I talked a little bit about the 5 moments of learning need, and what's important here is to think about not just the first time that you need to learn or do something. It's also thinking about when you're going to apply and refine, you're going to adjust to changes and react when something fails or goes wrong. So for example, if I were to create my individual learning plan around, I want to increase my area of business acumen, and business acumen is more than just, understanding financial sheets. It's about making good, solid business decisions. So there's an element of that where I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to probably try to put it in action. I'm going to apply it, and then something's going to happen with that, and I'm going to need to figure out how to respond to that. So when I'm mapping out my learning experience, I don't just pull like initial lectures and pieces that tell me, hey, this is what business acumen, these are models to think about. I'm also trying to think about how do I set up my performance support networks, my personal networks, whether coaches or mentors or peers, to kind of help me as I try and apply and refine. Where am I pulling additional resources? Where can I find case studies on when people have applied this and what did they do when they adjusted when something went wrong? So I'm trying to round out my individualized learning plan to include not only the first topical introduction, but things that are helping me throughout this entire maturity of learning. Now, on the right hand here, you'll see the different ways in which we can go out and basically pull in information. So in the lower left, you talk about the learner. That's more that transactional role where I go out and I sit and somebody teaches, or I may collaborate a little bit with them. But the other roles here are also important, where I could, moderate a session. I could actually start a learning experience around business acumen, pull some peers together and moderate a discussion around that. I could start to curate materials that I have found and make them available for others and ask others to share with me. I can contribute to other posts or blogs or MOOCs, or participate in MOOCs where I'm contributing to the learning experience, and then I could actually collaborate on an actual initiative and an activity. It's more about being able to pull in a range of ways in which I can extend and enhance my learning experience around a topic, but also try and integrate it into my everyday activities as much as possible. So now I want to make sure that I give you a couple of learning resources that we have here. These are just 12 online learning resources. You can pull a range of topics together. I pulled in a couple of these here, and some of you may be familiar with these. We do have the chat window open, so I'd love to see if you guys have any others that you recommend with what you're seeing out there, if you've attended any others beyond this. There are many more. I just picked 12 that have come through that I've either seen personally or know people who've personally participated in them. So I would love to see if you guys have any of those other ones out there. And so I'll talk a little bit about these, and some of them may populate into the chat window here. Well, of course, there is one, absolutely. Khan Academy is a great one for K through 12, but they're expanding on their topics. Lynda.com is a good one, which I know several organizations participate in. Those are all great resources. if you look at like W3 Schools, for example, if you wanted to learn about coding or web-based development, the W3 Schools is a great one to do that. And the other part about this is that these provide content in a variety of ways. I have just a couple of screenshots, but they're from video lectures to text to other materials that people are sharing in a variety of formats, little animations or illustrations. And I see a couple other here. Code Academy is great as well. I do know some folks that are using those materials. Udemy is another one. So thank you guys for kind of sharing with those. But the important part here is that we're in an exciting time as a lot of content is becoming available to us. But the challenge with the opening up of all the access to the content is that it's more important than ever to have a structure that allows you to start to pull your learning plan together, because there's so many things out there and so many things you can learn on. It's about managing a lot of those, managing or prioritizing your activities around that and making progress against that. So it is more important than ever to kind of come in with that plan or that strategy to work through that. Now, one additional resource I wanted to share with you guys is a self-directed learning tool. There's a couple of tools out there. I pulled Degreed as one of them, but it has a personal option that allows you to kind of go in and start to manage some of your own personal learning experience and being able to find access to new materials. Some organizations have also incorporated them and used it at the full enterprise-wide level. You can do it individually, or you can use it at the enterprise, but it's an evolving and emerging tool that I see a variety of range of adoption with this. Now, I think the important part here is that I believe that if you actually sit down and speak with the folks from Degreed, they're saying they're not looking Degreed to replace an LMS or to be an LMS, but what it is it's a tool that helps manage or structure a learning experience around open access to content. So, it's an interesting tool. There are others out there. I believe PathGather is another one. I'm less familiar with that one. So there are a couple out there, and it is free for folks to join, as I see that Tom just posted in the chat window. So I know that we had a couple of questions, and I know it's really tight here with 20 minutes, but I want to make sure that we kind of go back and identify a couple of questions I think that did pop up. So let's see. First one was about, was informal learning a more option for self-direct learning? Yeah, and I think it's informal learning is one way that the individuals out of the organization. So it's instead of waiting for the organization to bring information to them in structured courses, that's always a resource to access what's available from within your organization. But this is about being able to take ownership from the point of the performer or the learner to be able to go out. And that informal learning is really driving from the relevance around those individuals and those performers. So informal learning is how a lot of folks get done, but more than ever, what's changing that informal learning is how we get access to the information, the way we connect to others, the way we dialogue and discuss. So all of that is changing with, the increasing amount of information available, as well as the connectivity that we have. We don't all have to be in the physical same location now to have rich dialogue and basically learning conversations around a range of topics. So it's a great question. So I don't know if there are other questions. Feel free to post them back in here again. I think if there was a couple of other things, I could talk a little bit about the MIT Open Courseware program. There are a range of topics on there that go from business to computing. So they range all of that. TED has a lot of videos available and is always being refreshed with new content that's provided from a range of sources. Each of these universities, and these are just a handful of them, a lot of the universities are starting to make their information available. And that's the thing about the iTunes University, for example, is that it is pulling, it has a lot of relations as a centralized with a lot of these universities to make that available through iTunes University as well. So I encourage you guys to go out, start creating your personal learning plans. Think about how you're trying to blend your personal and professional goals to continue to add value for the organizations, get better at flexing that muscle on taking ownership for your learning, and make sure to keep, create time and space for you to do that. And then once you start to do that with small incremental steps, the behaviors will start to set in. So I know we're getting at the end of our time, so I wanted to just wrap up. The slides will be available for folks that will make those available out there for you. So Kayla, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, well, thanks, Matt, for that great presentation and covering a lot in 20 minutes. There's obviously still more information that we could be discussing, so I encourage everybody to continue the conversation with Matt beyond today's session. You can see his contact information is available in the slide deck. We'll be sure to send everyone a link to a follow-up blog post where Matt has agreed to address some of today's key takeaways, so we'll be sending that to everybody as well. We'll also want to remind you that we'll be sending the recording and the slides from today, and this will be sent to the email address that you provided. This will likely go out on Monday, so give it a couple of days and it'll be emailing to you. We do have one question coming in. If you do have another question, be sure to enter it into the Q&A module at this time. But this first question, I know you already addressed one of them, is that these are great examples for individuals, but as a learning leader, how can I support a learner-driven journey like this within my own organization?
So I think that's part of it, is as part of a learning leader is to help the individuals in your organization start to become those stronger, more efficient, self-directed learners, because they're going to help the organization. So providing tool sets and instruction and trying to create space for that to happen. Encourage a variety of informal learning options. It's not just about going to attend a university or go to a workshop at a conference. Those are all great options, but also thinking through those daily and weekly opportunities where you're trying to create space and opportunities for folks to learn. But also it's important to help them tie it back to, how is it going to help them within their personal and professional goals, following through with the learning, tying it back to their overarching goals and plans. I'd say role modeling that, supporting that, because from an organizational standpoint, the more that your employees are empowered and I'd say proficient at self-directed learning, the more it's going to benefit the organization in the end. So there is a return on the investment around, creating the space and the time to do that. So, yeah, I think that's a short answer to a great question.
Great. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming through, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I want to thanks again to today's speaker, Matt Donovan, and thanks to everyone who attended for your time and attention. We do hope that you'll join us again for our next webinar, Catching Lightning in a Bottle, Enabling SME-Driven Learning. This will be on May 4th, so that's already coming up next week. So for DP Strategies, I'm Kayla Rotz, and I wish everyone a great day.